This is Brad Montgomery. Welcome to the Successful, Interesting, and Awesome podcast, where I interview people who are, wait for it, successful, interesting, and awesome. Or at least one of those three. Hey everybody, welcome. I've missed you. Have you been washing your hands? My name is Brad Montgomery, and I'm super excited about today because I don't mind telling you I love this podcast, period. But there are a few guests that I look forward to even more than others, and today's a perfect example of this. This is a guy who is a rock star in my industry, in the speaking industry. He has pretty much earned and been awarded any accolade that's out there and more. Like this guy is just a top player. He's got his own show on Sirius XM. He speaks for all of the large organizations on our planet, plus the small ones too. He speaks for adults, he speaks for business, he speaks for kids, he speaks for churches, he speaks for marriage. And today, he's speaking with us. I'm so glad to introduce to you some guy I've been looking up to for a long time because he's that kind of awesome. Say hello to Dr. Willie Jolly. What's up, Willie?
Brad Montgomery, it is a privilege and a pleasure to be in your presence and to be on your show. I think you're one of the great spirits in the world, and I'm grateful to have you as my friend. And I'll say to all your listeners and all your viewers how I start every interview, every program, and every product and presentation. I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it. Didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it. Give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but our eternities are wrapped up in it. So I'm grateful for this minute, this moment to be on your show, the Brad Montgomery Show. This is a big deal.
Yeah, and don't you forget it. That was it, Willie. That's all I needed for you. We're done. That made me feel it. You gave me a compliment. You gave us a little piece of Willie. But here's the plan for today. Should you choose to accept it, I want to get away from your talking points. So if we find ourselves talking about what you talk about in your keynote, we might be off topic. I want to get kind of behind the scenes to know what it's like to be Willie in this crazy business. And there's right. So like,
well, that's good.
Anyone listening needs to go to your website and get you. They need to understand you. But I'm hoping today we can kind of get behind that material and just talk about you.
Okay. All right. Very good.
All right. So here's question number one. My passion, Willie, on stage when I'm talking to my peeps is social and emotional support, being an encourager and an acknowledger. And you are so good at that. And one of the reasons I was a little nervous about asking you on this is because you've always been that for me. And then in prep for this interview, I've been stalking you. So I've been watching these videos and kind of getting reminded of your flavor. And you are that guy. You are the person who says you can be a winner. There's greatness in you. But what I want to know is who were the people that encouraged you?
Oh, that's a great question. So many people have encouraged me over the years. It starts with my parents, my mom and dad. My dad died when I was 13 years old. So I didn't have that much time with him. But my mom was all in to my brother and I. She was a school teacher who taught us about integrity and character. She taught us about the value of education. She taught us about entrepreneurship. Even though she was a school teacher, she made up income lapses by selling World Book Encyclopedia, Shackley vitamins.
Wow.
She rented rooms in our home to graduate students. So that entrepreneurial zest was powerfully impactful. So my mom always encouraged my brother and I that she believed in us and that there was nothing we could not do. So that was major. And second, who else encourages?
Wait, hold on, let me interrupt. When you said to your mom, I'm going to be a musician and then I'm going to be a speaker, did she say, oh, goody? Or did she say, are you kidding me? I work my butt off. You're going to be a doctor.
She said, whatever you want to do. As long as her only thing was, I had to get an education. She didn't care what I did with the education. She just was insistent that I got an education. So I got my undergrad degree, and I was still in the music business. In fact, I was always in the music business, always in the music business. She put up her house for my brother and I to buy the equipment for our first business, which was a recording studio. She had a paid for house, and she took out a loan on the house to get us the money to be able to purchase the equipment. As long as I went to school, she was good with it. And so I got my undergrad and still in music. Then I got my graduate degree. I got my master's. And she was very excited about that. And then I continued in music. And some years later, I told her, I said, you know what? I'm going to change. I'm going to start this thing called motivational speaking. And she said, great, let's do it. And so I started speaking, and her only request was when I'd go to great cities that she wanted to go with me.
Oh,
So whether it was New Orleans or LA, or, she said, I want to go. Cool. So my mom was always encouraging.
that's pretty,
Then,
that's potent.
yeah,
That's not just
yeah,
saying, okay, honey, do what you want to do. She put up her house.
yeah,
That's a pretty
yeah, she did.
tangible, like very specific way for you to see, I guess she believes in me.
Yep, she did. She believed in both myself and my brother. And we both did well with education. My brother was the first jazz major from the great university called Howard University. He was the first jazz major. And he was a well-regarded, prolific jazz guitarist. So she was happy with both of our activities, and they was happy with who we married. My mother always told us, marry a smart woman. So my brother married a lawyer, and I married an educator who has gone on to become my COO, run my company, handle all of our activities in terms of our finances, logistics, and our investments. So we both did well there as well.
Is your mom still with us?
No, she gone on to be with the Lord. And I miss her greatly. But you know what? I say I miss her, but I don't really miss her in the sense of I'm grieving or longing. I miss her because I would love to talk to her sometime.
Yeah.
But you know what? She's living the life of Riley now. She's sitting with the Lord. So, I ain't mad. We all want to get to heaven, but you can't get to heaven if you're still walking around here. So anyway,
when did she die? How long ago did she die?
15 years ago.
So
16 years ago. So.
She saw some of what you're doing. Did she see you in a big arena? And
she saw me and doing my speaking. She was friends with Les Brown and saw us doing tours together. She was very proud of my books, my radio shows. So she got to see the benefit of that decision that I was leaving music as a full-time musician, become a speaker. And she got to benefit that and got to travel. And I mean, as I said, when I went to New Orleans to speak, she would say, I want to go. And I went for the National Speakers Association one time and spoke for their chapter. And they could not have been kinder to my mother, made a big meal for her. And she loved food. She was a foodie. So I'm very grateful. I'm grateful.
Well, I interrupted you because I asked you who encouraged you, and clearly your
Les
mom.
Brown was another major influence. Major.
How does that happen that you're buddies with Les Brown? How does that happen?
Well, first of all, I remember hearing about him. When I first started speaking, the lady who would cut my hair when I had hair, she said, there's this guy who's doing what you are trying to do. You're doing it at a small level. He's doing it on a big level. And he's coming to DC, and you need to go hear him speak. And I did. And during that evening, he took a time for question and answers. And I got him and asked a question. And what I asked must have got his attention. What have I said? I don't remember what it was I said, but the way I said it must have tickled something in his brain, because he said, wow, that's a great question. And I like the way you asked it. I'd like to meet you after this program. Okay, so when the program was over, I was waiting patiently. He's signing books and so forth. And almost at the end of his signing books, where I'm going over to connect with him, his handlers come and say, we got to go to the next place. And they swoop him up and he's gone. And I didn't get to say anything to him. So I went to the promoter and I said, he wanted to meet me. You heard him say that in the press. She said, yeah. I said, where is he staying? What hotel? She told me what hotel. This is about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I went and sat in the hotel lobby till 2 a.m.
Willie, you are a stalker.
Yeah, I'm a stalker. And until he walked in, and I said, you said you wanted to talk to me. Here I am. And he said, wow. Wow. I'm impressed. So we traded information, and some months later, he was coming back through DC to do a big event at the Warner Theater, and he was doing a couple weeks earlier, like a week or so, 10 days. So he was doing a promotional tour to help sell tickets. And he had an event at a bookstore. And when I got to the bookstore, it was packed, rammed, and jammed. People everywhere. And somehow I went all the way around the side of the building, came in the back of the building, got behind him, walked up and put a note in his shirt pocket saying, this is Willie Jolly. We met when you were here. I know you're having this event. I can help you sell tickets. Give me a call. And I left. About 6 o'clock that evening, my phone rang. And I said, this is Willie. He said, this is Les. I said, I know. How you doing, Les? And he said, look, he said, I like your energy. I like your enthusiasm. I like your ambition. I do need some help. We're not sold out, and we want to sell this thing out. I said, well, I know a lot of the radio people. I can set up radio interviews for you the day before or the day of the event, and we can do it. And I'll pick you up, and I'll take you from radio station to radio station. He said, you got a deal. And so we did this event the day of the concert. I picked him up early in the morning, went to the first radio station, went to the second radio station, went to the third radio station. And then we had an interview, but we had to go to Alexandria, Virginia for this interview for him. It was for him. And when the people who saw him come through the building, they were all, oh, Les Brown, Les Brown, Les Brown. And one of those places was an adult education school. And the president knew me and said, do you think you can get him to say a few words after his interview? And I said, well, let me ask him. So he was getting ready to get on the phone. This was before cell phones. You had to find a landline. And he found a landline, and I put a note. They want you to say a few words after you finish. And he wrote on there, you start speaking, and I'll come in afterwards. And so I started speaking. And I doing my thing. And he walked in the room. He stood. I said, ladies and gentlemen, I can stop. He said, no, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Oh,
And I kept going. And when I finished, he said, I will not follow that kind of performance. That was magnificent. And he said, young man, just for that, tonight you opened my show.
what?
And that was it. I opened that night. We became friends. He said, I made him work. And he said, from here on out, you're going to be any tours I do, you're going to be on them. So the next tour was the Music and Motivation Dream Team Tour, which was Les Brown, Billy Preston, a great organist, Gladys Knight, and me. And that's where we became good friends.
How old were you?
I was in my early 30s, mid to early to mid 30s. And
that's young.
We've been friends
that accomplished.
We've been friends for 30 years. And we've been on tours together. He's been on my radio show numerous times. When my mom died, he spoke at the funeral. When my brother, the one I told you about, died, he spoke at that funeral. When his best buddy died, we're supporting of each other. And we're good buddies. We talk often. We talk every couple of days.
Well, walk us back to that day. So he said, you warm up this, you start speaking for this smaller crowd, and then I'll mop it up. And he didn't. Can you walk us through how that felt?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked because this is the great Les Brown. But he said, man, you're different. You're different. You're a different guy. You're a different speaker. And I'm impressed with he didn't use the word talent. He said, I'm impressed with your ability to connect and engage with people. And he said, it's something about your heart. It goes into people's bodies and impacts them at another level. There's a sincerity for you that I'm impressed with, and I'm moved by it.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned a song before we got on, We'll Get Through This. And that's a song I released soon after the pandemic, just to encourage people. And the person who made it go viral was Les. He said, I listened to it. He said, I listen to it every morning and every night because he's been fighting cancer. And he said, I need that message. And he would literally every day he would do a Facebook Live or some sort of social media event. And he would say, oh, by the way, folks, you got to listen to this song. We'll Get Through This. And he'd send it to winwithwillie.com and say, listen to it over at Willie's site. And it went viral.
Well, I told you before we started recording, I just listened to it this morning, and yeah, tingles, baby.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I want to encourage everybody to go winwithwillie.com and listen to that song and be encouraged and then pass it on. This has been a tough time, Brad. We've been going through something that we've never seen in our lifetime, unless you're over 100 years old. That we got a pandemic, economic downturn, massive job loss, racial strife, racial upheaval and reckoning, social upheaval, political upheaval, and then ecological issues where one coast, we've got fires burning out of control, burn down whole communities. On the other coast, we have hurricanes that came so rapidly and so many that they ran out of names. And in the middle of the country, we had a freeze that was unprecedented, and people died because of a cold snap, and the electricity was not able to keep people warm. What in the world? So people need to hear that kind of message. We will get through this. Don't throw in the towel. Don't jump off a bridge. Don't give in. We will get through together. We will get through this together.
What am I going to say after that, Willie? What am I going to say? All right, but you open a door, and with your permission, we're going to walk through it.
Sure.
I am so I'm from Denver, Colorado,
Okay.
mostly white here. You're from
Okay.
DC, way more
Yes.
diversity. So I am one of the. I'm kind of embarrassingly part of the large number of middle-aged white guys who is saying, "Oh, I didn't know," or "I didn't know the degree," or every time I
Yeah.
listen to a podcast, I feel like I get more sad, and the more I learn about American history, I feel like I can't believe I didn't know that, or at least I didn't know the degree. I wanted to ask you about your life with racism and how that, in particular, as a professional speaker,
Yeah.
I've never thought about being a white guy and how that affects my business. But this year, now that I know the word privilege, I have. Can you walk us through your thoughts on speaking and solopreneur and racism?
Yeah. Sure. Thank you for bringing a subject up that needs to be discussed, and I appreciate your willingness to discuss,
I'm a little afraid.
because you don't shouldn't be afraid. I appreciate it, because this last year I've had conversation with a number of my speaker buddies who have asked similar questions. Say, give us some insight into your life. What's it like being a speaker who's African American, who's uh, a minority in an. And I think back to my grandmother, who told me, you must be twice as good to be equal. You've got to always be excellent. And as a speaker, I think about a meeting planner who said, when I called her about speaking for a conference, she said, I can't bring you in this year because we had a speaker last year who was Black, who didn't do a good job. So I can't bring you in. And my question to her was, have you ever brought in a speaker who was white, who didn't do a good job, and you brought another white speaker the next year?
Mm.
And she said, yes. And it made her realize how unfair that was, that she's judging me by somebody else's performance. But that had an impact on me, because from that day forward, I added to my list of things to do was not to just be excellent for me, which is what I've been doing, just be excellent. And every time I get on stage, just to try and kill it. But be excellent for that young African American speaker who won't get a shot unless I'm good. So that's part of the problem. The other thing is, right after George Floyd got killed, there was a forum of speakers, and there were 5 African Americans, 3 of whom were in the Hall of Fame, and 2 were CSPs. For those who don't know, certified speaking professionals, are well regarded. And this was the first time where we all took off the mask. And of the 3 men who were there, and they finally were able to be truthful, how hard it has been to not come off as an angry Black guy, to always try and depress or suppress our big personalities. Because somebody might think this is a big Black guy. And those 3 men, including myself, cried. Just cried. When we talked about that part of our life, and then the second part being Black fathers, and 2 ladies didn't have any children, but the Black fathers who said the exact same thing. When we saw that video of George Floyd on the ground with that officer's knee in his neck, initially I saw George Floyd, a guy I didn't know. I had no idea who he was. But within a few minutes of watching that video, his face changed from a guy named George Floyd to my lawyer son, William, who might have made an illegal U-turn or might have made a right turn on red when he thought it was law in that city and got pulled over and put on the ground and had a knee in his neck because he was black and not because he was an attorney, not because he did something that was violent. This guy got arrested for a $20 bill that was said to be fraudulent. I don't think he had a printing press to create that $20 bill. Somebody probably passed it to him and he passed it. But even if he didn't, it was mind-boggling. I saw my son on the ground, and the other two saw their children on the ground and said how painful it was. This was the most painful experience I'd ever had as an African-American father. Painful. And so the answer to your question is, what's it like to be an African-American speaker? You just got to be good. And you make no excuses. I don't believe my race should be an excuse for me to whine, cry about it. It's tough. And you mentioned in your speech before I started to say white privilege. And some people make that feel like I'm mad at you because you have some privileges. I am not. I am not. I just want people to know that business is hard for you, for me, for everybody. But when we have to both get on this path to run a 100-yard dash to win in business, when you run the 100 yards. I run 150 yards to get to the same place because of those situations where I can't bring you in this year because we had a guy last year. It's that extra that I have to do to get to the same place. It's not a matter of you getting a privilege that you're mindful of. It's a privilege that you don't have to carry that extra weight. I'm not complaining about it. I'm making it aware.
Right.
Because I have to do what I have to do. To build this business, I've had to do what I had to do.
I heard you, Willie. I heard you because, in my community of whites, in my world in Denver, there's a lot of talk about guilt and complicity and, a lot of talk about what we should do. And then I heard you say, like, I'm not mad at you. I don't know if I could be as generous as you, because hearing you say, I have to worry not just about my job today, but I have to worry about the next African-American following. That's not something Brad Montgomery has ever had to worry about, or
right.
I've ever considered. I don't know how you shake that off.
Well, I'm not mad at you because you didn't create this system. See, you have never had your race keep you from getting a job. Okay, I have. So what I decided was, okay, I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna work harder. I'm gonna go harder, faster, farther. And it creates a new muscle. I'm not mad at you for that. You didn't do this. You didn't create this. But some of this is systemic. That's why we talk about systemic racism. The little things that make the big difference, like the Confederate statues. that all over America. I've seen them all my life. I said, what in the world? Why is there a statue of Robert E. Lee, who was the general of the force that wanted to do away with the U.S. government? I don't get that. Why would we honor that person? That's like, us in America honoring Benedict Arnold. Why would we celebrate this person? That's like the Christians celebrating Judas. Hey, Judas, we got it. So it doesn't make sense. But you know what? That was a byproduct of that systemic racism after the Civil War to keep Black people in a subservient position. So once you know the history, you start to say, okay, what do we do about it? So let me also say, maybe while we're talking about race, one of our well-known CPAs, Hall of Famers, did a post saying, I don't agree with Black Lives Matter. And so everybody know I'm really close with this guy. And I get these calls from all the Black speakers, one after another. What is wrong here? You need to talk to your guy. So I call him. I say, hey, buddy, I've gotten calls about your post about Black Lives Matter. He said, well, I believe all lives matter. I said, you're absolutely right. All lives do matter. I said, now let me ask you a question. If your house was on fire, burning to the ground, and someone called the fire department, and they came to your neighborhood, and your house is on fire, would you expect them to put water on all the houses? All these houses matter. Yeah, they all matter, but right now, your house is on fire. Right now, we're seeing Black people killed for a $20 bill. We're getting Black people killed in their bed because somebody made the wrong address. We had a Black guy running through a white neighborhood get shot by some vigilantes. We got a young guy in Colorado who, sweet spirit, masseuse, violinist, walking home from a convenience store, and they say, you look suspicious. And they give him a shot that kills him. None of these people were violent. And they all got killed. Yet a guy goes into a church in South Carolina and shoots 9 Black people at a prayer meeting. He has no harm upon him. It's not right.
I love that metaphor of your fire is on, or your house is on fire, so there's urgency, and that is so relevant. That is a helpful metaphor.
Yeah.
My wife, we've talked about this endlessly, and she's smarter than me. Anyone who knows her will tell you she's smarter than me. But
you did good then. You married right.
She said that it was just bad luck. It was called Black Lives Matter and not Black Lives Matter 2, or just some way to.
That's you know what? Absolutely. When I first heard Black Lives Matter years ago, I did not accept it because I felt it was not the right statement. I thought it should have said Black Lives Matter 2. But after George Floyd, I accepted Black Lives Matter as a definitive statement, not as a political movement, which is what I told my friend. And let me finish the rest of that story. After I told him about the fire and the house and you wouldn't put on, he said, you're absolutely right. He went back the next day and put a big post on and said, I want to let everybody know that Black Lives Matter. And if we didn't put the Black Lives Matter period and not 2, is because by 2, you're making a statement to say, well, I want you guys to accept me. Rather than saying a definitive statement, Black Lives Matter, period. They matter. Asian lives matter, period. We got to stop having people beat up Asian people with this foolishness, period. So that is when I accepted it. And I had not accepted it before George Floyd. I felt that too, but it had to be definitive because this has to stop.
Let me go back in the conversation 5 minutes. You mentioned the Confederate monuments, and that's something I've thought about also because I have family in Richmond. As a kid, I would pass monuments like that and not think about it. It's just a guy on a horse. I never considered what it meant or who it was. And then eventually I got hip. How old were you when you realized this is a symbol of something horrible?
Yeah, I think because I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, or I'm not from, but my parents, my mom's family, and there was Confederate statues, and I always look at it and say, they lost, didn't they? I'd say that as a kid, didn't they lose?
Losers do not get a trophy.
Yeah, and I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand the significance of its being put there in the 1920s or the early 1900s, 40 years after the war, as a way to say that we are still superior. So the whole superiority thing is just illogical. That somebody superior to Asians or Jewish people or Hispanic people just by their genetic makeup or the genetic color of their skin. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. If you cut me, I bleed. If you cut me, you bleed. I got O positive. You got O positive. You need my blood, I give it to you. You got blood, you give it to me. If I were to die, you would use my heart as a donor. This is illogical, but it is a system that has to be dismantled. I think about my friends in Australia. When I go to Australia, I love going to Australia because they say, you know what, we got no race issues. Oh, you know, everybody has some issues with the Aborigines, but he said, as a whole, because we Australians know that they put us here from the dredges of Britain. You know, we were the dredges of societies. They put us in this outcast place called Australia. So we come from, you know, the social outcasts. So they said, man, we don't care what you look like. Who cares? Let's have a pint. Let's have a drink. Let's have a, you know, something. So anyway, I'm prayerful. I'm hopeful. And I am grateful that we got friends like you who are heavy conscious. Let me tell you, there was a parade or protest near my home after George Floyd died. And my wife and I went over there with our sign, and most of the people on the street were white, protesting.
Oh,
and that spoke to me in volumes, because this is the first time that I've ever seen where white people were just as invested in a social protest at the same level as black people. It was heartwarming. So I thank you for bringing this up and let me have a time to give some thoughts to people to say, everybody matters, yes. Blue lives matter. White lives matter. Asian lives matter. Hispanic lives matter. And black lives matter. They matter. Period.
One of the things I've learned this year, Willie, is how completely uncool it is for white people to go up to a person of color and say, "What's it like to be African American?" So I get that. So I'm super grateful that you let me ask you.
You know, I don't have that issue. You know, let's be, some black people have a very thin skin about race. I'm not one of them. My son's not one of them. You know me a long time. You've never seen me play the race card.
No.
You've never heard me at NSA play the race card. Because I wanted to be a person who I modeled General Powell. I never saw him ready to play the race card. He just put his head down and went to work. And that's what I've done. And when people ask me a race question, I open up and tell them, hey, let me tell you what I'm thinking. But you'll never see me play the race card, because that's a victim mindset. And I don't have a victim mindset. That's a lack mindset. I have an abundance mindset. And I want people to prosper. I don't care who they are, what color they are, what their background is. I don't care what their gender is. I don't care what their social situation or their sexual orientation. I want people to prosper. I want people to win, and I want to help them do that. So that's what I do. I do every day. I'm coming in with all I got. I'm coming in with guns, with all I got, just a blazing. I want people to succeed, and I'm going to do everything I can to help them do that.
Sometimes when you don't know what you should say, you should just be quiet. And that was me. All right. So Willie.
Yes.
Would you've got this, in my mind, I have you pegged as a pure motivational speaker. You just get out there and tell people to be better and that you see greatness within them. And would your message be different if you were white?
Yeah. Yeah. It would be different. Not maybe in the content as much, because my content is very generic. It's not black or white or red or blue or anything. It's the delivery of that content. It's the delivery. There's a preacher in here somewhere, a Baptist preacher who got a spirit inside of me that has a uniqueness, that you know that there's a cultural part. My singing has a cultural part. What we call it in the black church, you put a little grease on it. You put a little grease on it, got a little in it. And that's where that cultural part comes in. So when I speak, there's a cultural experience that you're getting as part of my messaging. The content may not be cultural, but the delivery certainly is.
Do you thank you. I just wanted to hug you when you transitioned into this topic because you know I wanted to talk about this.
Yes.
When I hear you speak, I'm not sure if this is true, but I kind of feel like I see you go in and out of the black preacher bit.
Yep.
And I
don't think about it.
Oh, well, that was the next question.
It's not.
Are you tactical?
No, it's not. It's not tactical. I go up and I throw my heart over the net, and y'all just have to go with me. If I'm speaking at a church or speaking at a company, I'm throwing my heart over the net, and my body follows. I don't think about it. I don't practice it. It just comes out that way. Now, remember that I'm an entertainer who sang in nightclubs for many years, so I'm pretty adept at captivating an audience. Then I'm a theologically trained speaker. I have a master's and a doctorate of theology. And I grew up Methodist, which was very highbrow. And I ended up Baptist. And in between, I went to a lot of Pentecostal churches.
Mm.
And I got that Pentecostal apostolic fire. And man, when I mix all that stuff up together and just let it loose, whoo.
I've been there. Whoo is
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it can be very uplifting.
So you answered my question, I guess. You haven't practiced this? You haven't thought about that? Because I see it and I'm
No,
like, how can you do this? Is such a skill. You must think about
it's
that.
funny. It's so funny. I got an email and then a follow-up call from a professor in England who taught public speaking. And he said, I've never seen anybody do what you do, the way you do that. From the moment you step on the stage, you go right in.
Yeah, you do.
And
No
you go
warm up.
right in, and you don't warm up. You just go in. You do some humor. You captivate them. You make them laugh, and then you go right for their heart. And you're moving and you're prancing and you're stepping. I said, I've never seen anybody walk backwards talking. How in the world do you do that? I said, I never noticed I did it. So when we do our speaker boot camp, and we usually do it once a year, we didn't do it in 2020 because of the pandemic. My wife has to translate and watch videos. Say, now, let me show you what he did, because he can't tell you what he did.
Mm.
It wasn't something conscious. So she will say, now, let me tell you what he did and how he did it. I can't tell you why he did it, but I can tell you what he did and break it down. His pace, his fluctuation of tones, when he does the humor, and when he gets preachy.
Do you so I don't know why I know this is true, and maybe I'm wrong. I guess that's my way of saying could be wrong. I think Barack Obama is able to turn it on and off. Where if he sounds like Barack Obama this way in front of a white audience, and then if he's in front of a huge black church, he turns it up a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
When you're in front
But you
of
remember he was raised by white people. And he had a black father. That's all. His mama and his grandparents were the people he was raised with were white. So he became what we call in black cultures, he was bilingual, or what we call code shifting. My son is a code shifter. He went to all white schools for most of all his life, and he went to prep schools. So he was not into a black education place after elementary school until he went to law school at Howard University. So he can code shift. He can talk to the guys in the corner, but he can also talk to the people in the courtroom. And so Barack has that same gifting or ability, not a gifting, it's ability. That's something you can learn.
Well, is that something you do? Do you code shift if, for example, you're in front of a all-white audience in rural Iowa versus an arena in DC?
Yeah, I'm sure I do. But typically, when I'm in front of a all-black audience, I'm just put a little more grease on it.
I want that skill so bad. If I ever did that, everyone would be going like, "This doesn't fit. What happened?" He's been watching too many videos of Willie. All right. Well, thank you. Let me go on to something that is related.
Okay.
But slightly different.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out a way to phrase this question. You have this ability that is very, very strong. And if you've witnessed it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When I'm in your presence and you look me in the eyes and you say, Brad, you can do this. I just showed you how to do it. Now get out there and do it. I believe it. And you have that ability to project something in me. And then I know your business is the ability to do that same thing, just on a grander scale to a huge audience. What is that? Is that just charisma? Or is it a skill? Is it your personality? Is it you as unique as I think it is?
I can't answer that honestly because I don't know. I do know that I really meant it when I say it to you. That's true. I really meant it. I want you to go out there and just be phenomenal. So you can do this, man. Come on. You were born to do this.
One of our peers, Hall of Fame speaker Leanne Tiemann, is a buddy of mine, and she has this in a big way, this skill. And I was talking to her, you know, I don't know, we were having a drink or something like that. And I said, Leanne, isn't it kind of odd or just fascinating that here we are normal people, then we do our presentation, and afterwards they come up and buy our book or take a selfie with us, and they attribute amazing things to us. And I was saying, Leanne, that just feels so weird because I'm just like them, and I just want to say like, oh, thanks, come on, we're all the same. And she said, no, Brad, shame on you. That is not your job. Your job is to, if they are projecting anything on you, then your job is to take it and be it and give it back and more. Can you comment on this? Because I don't even know the question, but this is something you do so well.
Well, I believe, you know, I'm a man of faith. And I believe that we are given spiritual gifts. We didn't do anything to get them. And it is a God-given blessing. That is my blessing, to be encouraging. I want to encourage everybody. A friend of mine called in to our Monday night marriage show. My wife and I do a Monday night marriage show, but I invite everybody to join us, by the way. Facebook Live as well as Instagram Live every Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. Called Make Love, Make Money, Make It Last, the broadcast. And he called in and said, I've known Willie since high school. And he had the same personality. He was so encouraging and upbeat. I was a little afraid of him. I didn't know anybody like him.
He's a freak.
So, yeah, a real weird guy. I would talk to everybody. I like people. I'm an extrovert. I married an introvert. And I want people to do well. And so I just go out and I share my heart. And for those who it works for, great. Some people it doesn't maybe work for. I don't know. That's not my job. My job is to do the best I can when I step on that stage, or when I'm in front of that camera, or when I'm in front of that microphone, and input and impact and inspire people. You know what the word inspire, by the way, Brad?
No.
Is taken from the Greek word to breathe anew. Now, most people put me in the motivational speaker category because that's the big tent. But just like a place kicker is in the big tent of a football player, his specific gifting or specialty is kicking the ball. I'm in the big tent of motivation, but my specific gifting is inspiration. Motivation deals with your head. Inspiration deals with your heart.
Ooh, I like that. Where did winning come from? The reason I ask is I consider myself to be a motivational speaker. And my topic is encouragement and acknowledgement and compliments and building people up, which I think is like just right there with your message. But your word, if we go to your websites, it's about winning. And I
Yeah.
wonder how winning almost feels like a competition, and that is not where I see you at all. So how did you come
Well,
up with winning?
we went with winning because I want you to win. If you ask most people, look, how many of you want to go to Bahamas? Okay, everybody put their hand up. Now, I didn't ask them how they were going to get there. You might go there by plane or by boat or by rowboat, but you are concerned about the end result, the destination. What does everybody want to do? They want to win. They want to win in their personal life, professional life. They want to win in their finances. And it's not a win-win. I had the honor of speaking in Australia on an event, 3-day event with Stephen Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey. He wrote the foreword for my book, An Attitude of Excellence. And Dr. Covey, when I was backstage, I asked him, Dr. Covey, of those 7 habits, what's the most powerful? He said, they're all powerful. I said, no, which one is the most powerful? You had to choose one.
Right.
He thought for a second. He said, win-win. Help other people win. You're going to win more. And that's when I decided I'm going to help people win in their families, in their marriages, in their business, in their raising children. I'm going to help young people win, get away from bullies and feeling and thinking that they are less than. I'm going to help people win in their marriages. I'm going to help people win in their finances. I'm going to help people win every which way I have the capacity to do it. So that's why I went with winning, because I want everybody to win. I want you to go to winwithwillie.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I'll send you a 1-minute message every morning, Monday through Friday, that will inspire, encourage, uplift, empower you to win more. I want you to win. It's time to win. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Willie Jolly putting a little grease on it. That is how we put the grease on, boys and girls. Yeah, you're the real deal, baby, buddy. Well, I'll tell you though. Here's a compliment for you. I already told them that I consider you to be one of my encouragers, but there was a time at the National Speakers Association, and we were hanging out with some other people, and you were just talking about kind of what you're working on, and you know, you could have said, I'm kind of where I want to be, and I'm doing well, but you're like, I'm going to add and add and add, and I'm going to win. I'm going to put some grease on it, and I was quietly sitting in the corner, but I was thinking, holy cow, this guy, I want to be like him.
Bless your heart.
You're a good role model.
Well, thank you, Brad Montgomery. You're a good man, and you're a great spirit. Well, can I close out with something for your folks?
Wait, hold on. Yes, but let me ask you. I'm gonna let you choose the order. I really love to ask every guest the same question, and I'd love to ask you what gives you hope, and you can answer that any way you like. So, would you like to close the way you want to close first, or do you want to answer the hope question?
No, I'll answer that question first, and then. And my close is perfect. I had no idea that you're going to ask that question, but it's perfect for your listeners and your viewers. What gives me hope is my faith. I trust God more than anything else. I trust God. In the good times, I trust God. In the challenging times, I trust God. I really do. And so I got hope in the future. I have great expectations that good is coming. So I will close with this that speaks right to this. I recently got awarded this award with an eagle, presented to Dr. Willie Jolly, CSP, CPAE, 2020 American Motivation Award for Lifetime Achievement. I have eagles, Brad, all over my office. There's one here. There's one right there. There's another one over there. There's another one right there. I got eagles all over the place to remind me to not take the easy path. When storms arise and tough times come, you have to make a decision. Are you going to be an ostrich or are you going to be an eagle? Now, ostrich in the tough times will stick his head in the ground and say, "Wake me when it's over." But the eagle, when the storms arise, does something very odd. It takes flight and flies right into the face of the storm. And it fights through the storm. It struggles through the storm. It perseveres through the storm. It persists through the storm until it's able to get above the storm. And then it can fly at 3,000 feet and see the panoramic view of the environment. And now it can see the whole story. And it can say, yes, okay, right here, I see it now. There's a crisis right here. Pandemic, economic downturn, massive job loss, racial strife, social upheaval. I see it right now. It's tough right there. But I can see up the road. And what I see up the road is good up the road. It's good up the road. And so I want to say to you, Brad Montgomery, and I want to say to you who are listening and looking, everybody who's watching or listening to this program right now, we're in the midst of a strife time right now, a crisis right now, but there's good up the road. There's good up the road. It's good up the road. Keep fighting, keep striving, keep working. Don't give up, because there's good up the road. I love you, man.
Willie, I love you too. All right, everybody. You know I'm not going to say a dang thing after that except for go to winwithwillie.com. And by the way, I'm sorry because you're going to lose some of your life there because I went there and you're going to like to visit there. Win with Willie, right?
Yeah, Win with Willie.
Win with Willie. All right. And
sign up for the newsletter.
You're going to want to just look for the song.
Look for the song, right?
Yeah, you're going to want to hear that. Willie Jolly, thank you for being my guest. Hang with me just for a second, everybody. Winwithwillie.com. My name is Brad Montgomery. Make it a great day.